Korean history. According to a book called the Samguk Yusa, Memorabilia of the Three Kingdoms, written in the 13th century, the ancient kingdom of Old Joseon was founded in 2333 BCE by Dangun, who was often called Dangun 할아버지, or Grandfather Dangun. Dangun was the son of Hwanung, a deity, and a woman who had been a bear before Hwanung transformed her into a human. We do not have written records of Old Joseon, but we know that people living on the Korean peninsula continued to develop agriculture and technology, importing iron and bronze cultures from other parts of Asia. The Three Kingdoms was an important time in Korean history. Goguryeo, 37 BCE to 668 CE, was the northernmost of the Three Kingdoms, while Baekje, 18 BCE to 663 CE, was located in the southwest of the peninsula, and Silla, 57 BCE to 936 CE, was in the southeast. There was also a small confederated kingdom called Gaya, year 47 to 562, between Baekje and Silla. Under King Gwanggaeto, the great expander of the kingdom, Goguryeo defeated the Khitans to extend far north into what we know today as China, while Goguryeo, at its peak, also controlled about 2/3 of the Korean peninsula. The kingdom of Baekje had close ties with the Japanese islands, sharing much of its arts, archaeology, and Buddhism with Japan. Silla is perhaps best known for its long history and cultural treasures that we can still see today in Gyeongju, the former capital of Silla. Silla won the unification wars against Goguryeo and Baekje and unified much of the Korean peninsula in the 7th century. Silla is also known for having had female monarchs, Yeowang, who inherited the throne on their own. The most famous is Queen Seondeok, who ruled from 632 to 647 and set the groundwork for Silla unification of the Three Kingdoms. Buddhism flourished in Silla. Many beautiful temples, pagodas, and statues are from this time. Silla monks also made important contributions to the development of Buddhism throughout Asia, and Silla was connected to the Silk Road by land as well as by sea, and Silla exchanged material culture with the rest of Asia. Although Silla is said to have unified the Three Kingdoms, it only controlled about 2/3 of the Korean peninsula. Much of the former Goguryeo territory became a part of Balhae, year 698 to 926, which was a multi-ethnic kingdom ruled by former Goguryeo elites. Culturally, Balhae shared much with Goguryeo, but also had active exchanges with the Tang, China, and Japan. Balhae was defeated by the Khitans in 926, and some Balhae elites sought refuge in Goryeo, which was founded in 918 by Wang Gon, also known as King Taejo. Buddhism continued to be important in Goryeo, and monks made woodblock carvings of the entirety of the Buddhist texts known at the time. This is known as the Goryeo Tripitaka, or the Korean Buddhist Canon, and was carved on 81,258 wooden blocks in 1087, all without a single mistake, to show their devotion to the Buddha. The original blocks were destroyed by the Mongols in 1232, and the replacement blocks were completed in 1249. Goryeo's printing advances did not stop here. It also had the world's first movable metal type in 1377. UNESCO has recognized the Jigji, Anthology of Great Buddhist Priests, from this time as the world's oldest extant text printed from movable metal type, predating the Gutenberg Bible by more than 70 years. Confucianism also became important at this time, especially as a way of organizing government and cultivating personal moral values. During Goryeo, the Mongols to the north expanded and took over China, establishing the Mongol Yuan dynasty. Goryeo became a part of the Mongol Empire from 1270 until 1368. Many Goryeo people went to the Mongol capital, and Korean culture became popular there. Many centuries before K-pop and Korean dramas became popular in China. The Mongols were defeated by the Ming in 1368, and Goryeo regained its independence until it was defeated by Yi Seongge, King Taejo, who founded Joseon in 1392. 2 years later, King Taejo moved the capital to what we know today as Seoul. But King Sejong the Great, the fourth king of Joseon, who ruled from 1418 to 1450, is the most famous of all Korean kings. His most notable contribution was in 1443 when he tasked his scholars to come up with a phonetic writing system called Hunmin Jeongeum to make it easier for his people to read and write in Korean. Before this, Korean people spoke in Korean but wrote official documents in literary Chinese. This is as if we spoke English but we wrote everything in Latin or Greek. After 1443, people could write Korean the way it sounded instead of translating it into literary Chinese. Joseon had many other important inventions, including the armor-clad turtle ships, Gobukseon, designed by Admiral Lee Sun-shin. Admiral Lee's naval strategies and armor-clad ships were instrumental in repelling the Japanese invasions of 1592 to 1598. Confucianism became even more important in Joseon as Yangban aristocrats put more emphasis on Confucian learning, especially after China was conquered by the Manchus in 1644. However, it was difficult for all but the elite Yangban aristocrats to rise to power in Joseon, so many of them focused on studying Confucianism in the countryside. Catholicism was introduced to Joseon in 1800 and became popular among some of the Yangban who were not in power, as well as commoners and women of all classes, because Catholicism said all men and women were equal before God. Joseon opened up trade to the West in 1876, and many Westerners, including Protestant missionaries, went to Joseon at this time. Many Koreans were eager to learn about Western ideas and science, and missionaries and Koreans opened up schools in their effort to modernize Joseon. But Joseon became caught between China and Japan, both of whom wanted to control Korea. Japan's victories in the Sino-Japanese War, 1894 to 1895, and the Russo-Japanese War, 1904 to 1905, entrenched Japan as a rising world power, and despite the Korean people's attempts to reform and strengthen Korea, Korea became a colony of Japan from 1910 to 1945. From 1910 to 1919, Korean people had few freedom under Japanese colonial rule, culminating in the March 1st movement of 1919 when Koreans throughout the country staged a peaceful protest demanding independence. While Koreans did not regain their freedom, Japan did ease up on controls, especially culturally and economically. Throughout the 1920s and 1930s, Koreans started businesses and published many books, magazines, and newspapers as they tried to make the best of the colonial situation. Many Koreans also pursued education in Korea, Japan, and abroad. Once Japan became involved in the Pacific War from 1937 and World War II from 1941, Koreans again lost their freedoms. Korean people even had to take on Japanese names and could not speak the Korean language in public. Many Korean people and resources were mobilized for the war effort. Some 200,000 young women from Korea, China, the Philippines, and other parts of Asia were abducted or coerced into becoming comfort women to serve as military sexual slaves to the Japanese Imperial Army. Despite these difficulties, many Koreans at home and abroad worked tirelessly for Korean independence. At the end of World War II in 1945, the Korean peninsula was divided at the 38th parallel under Soviet occupation in the north and American occupation in the south. In 1948, two separate countries were formed, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, North Korea, and the Republic of Korea, South Korea. On June 25, 1950, the Korean War broke out when North Korea attacked the South. American, Chinese, and other soldiers joined the Koreans in the fighting, making it an international war, not just a civil war. There was a truce in 1953, but no peace treaty concluded the war, so the two Koreas are still technically at war. Many people hope that peace or unification between the two Koreas will come soon. After the Korean War, South Korea pursued economic growth and democratization. Thanks to decades of hard work and dedication by many citizens, including students, workers, and religious people, South Korea became a democratic country in 1987. Today, South Korea has the 14th largest economy in the world and is leader in the manufacture of semiconductors, chips that power computers and other devices, automobiles such as Hyundai and Kia, mobile technology, Samsung and LG phones, electronics, Samsung and LG TVs and appliances, and ships. South Korea is also famous today for the Korean wave, with K-pop, dramas, films, and food popular throughout the world. North Korea is headed by Kim Jong-un, who has followed in the footsteps of his grandfather Kim Il-sung and father Kim Jong-il. North Korea's relations with South Korea, the United States, and other countries have been hopeful as well as tense as the political pendulum swings. Much remains uncertain as North Korea continues into the 21st century. Although going through 5,000 years of history in 10 minutes is a hurried glance, you know some knowledge about the Korean history now. This will give you an opportunity to make learning Korean more interesting and enjoyable.